Hello, welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast. Today I'm interviewing a very special friend of mine, and he is coming on the show today and being very vulnerable and talking about his experience with porn and his sex life and how porn has affected his sex life, and not only his sex life, but his finances, his mood, his friendships, his self-esteem, and so many other aspects in his life that he's realized when he decided to stop watching porn, and just his experience through his sex life and the choices he's made and the things he's experienced through learning to connect with love without sexuality with his partner. And I find his story very interesting and fascinating, and I hope you guys can gain some insight from it and take something from this episode. I hope you can just feel his passion and his presence in this episode. So I'm going to say no more and we will dive straight in. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast.
Ralph, thank you so much for having me on. I'm freaking excited.
Thank you so much. I know this is like a bit of a vulnerable topic to talk about and share with the public. So I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you very, very much for coming on today to talk about your sexuality and your sex life and your learning experience through all this. So yeah, thank you very much. The first question I have for you today is, what elevates your soul?
What a question. Well, it's a big one, loaded question. I could venture down so many different avenues, but the thing that pops out to me straight away is I've always had an obsession with progress. Like, I am happiest, my soul is elevated when I can feel the progress that's happening in my life. And it can be in so many different forms, like progressing in my ability to connect with people, progressing in my ability to speak and talk and communicate, progressing in my finances, progressing in my business ventures, progressing in my relationships. Like, when I can feel and sense progress, I am the most happiest. You cannot shake me. But the opposite of that is obviously when you feel a bit stagnant. When I feel a bit stagnant, I notice straight away that, my soul isn't elevated. I'm not happiest. I'm not feeling my best, because, progress to me is so important. And it's seemingly always been that way for me, Ralph.
Do you get bored often then?
I tend to, I've recognized over the years, over the 27 years I've been on this beautiful planet, I've kind of figured myself out a bit and realized that I can't just sit down with my feet up. I've tried that and I do get bored very quickly.
All right. So when and how did you realize that you even had like an issue around sex with your sex life?
Back. Yeah, so I
go straight in.
I was listening to a podcast, and I was working, obviously listening to a podcast, multitasking.
Yeah.
And I was doing this really mundane renovation work on my house, and I had this podcast in my ear, and they were talking about this topic of porn.
Yeah.
And I was about 6 podcasts deep on this day. So I didn't start out with porn. It just kind of, the episodes flowed into it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it unintentionally, but it started to massively resonate with me, this whole topic of porn and what it does. And so I had stopped watching porn for about 4 years at that point. So I had done a bit of research on porn and realized how much it kind of numbed me, and it does numb people. There were statistics out there of what porn does to the mind.
Let's go back there and start there so we can start from the beginning. So 4 years ago, I want to start there. What
what made you stop watching porn? Like, there's not many people who get into porn and then all of a sudden decide that they're not going to watch it anymore. So what happened at your time of life then?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point to start. Even though I didn't have my big breakthrough around sex, I did realize what porn was doing to me when I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I had been watching porn ever since I was about 13.
Wow.
12, 13. So almost like 10 years of watching porn. And it's such a sinister little thing. Like it's hard to describe because you don't think it, there's no real stigma around it as a male anyway. And so I never saw it as a bad thing. I never saw it as a thing that could handicap me.
It was your sex education, right? It's how you learned to have sex at the age of 13.
I didn't even see it as that. I just saw it as a way to just pleasure myself. And I enjoyed it. Like, I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the variety. I loved being able to explore different kinky sides of, you know, what I enjoyed. And sometimes I kind of surprised myself with what I was into and what turned me on. And, you know, for me, it was just normal because all of my other high school mates and mates that I grew up with were all, you know, recommending sites and talking to each other about it. And so it was like, oh, you know, have you heard of this site? And it wasn't like the main topic of conversation, but it wasn't taboo.
Right.
And so I was, you know, getting into it like sometimes a couple of times a day. And it was just normal. In fact, sometimes you almost felt like it, the more you watched it and the more you kind of pleasured yourself and got off and jizzed in the day, it was something to be proud of. It was like, yeah, my whole manhood is working a lot because I'm like, you know, sexually in there multiple times a day. And so you kind of feel a bit triumphant in that sense, but little did I know that it was chipping away at certain things that I didn't even relate it to, like motivation.
Right.
I didn't know why I was tired a lot. I was numb a lot. I started to lose motivation.
What do you mean by numb?
Like losing the desire, numb to the desire to date. And because I was single, so numb to the desire to date attractive women. Like all of a sudden, I just felt like there was less of a need to go out and date and meet and, you know, kind of peacock myself and be on show as a young guy trying to find a partner in life.
Yeah.
I just, that desire and that motivation, I was quite numb to, and I didn't even realize it.
Was it because you're like in a weird abstract sense that your porn was your girlfriend? So you were like, I've already got my shit sorted. I don't need to find anyone.
You could probably say that, even though in my mind it was those words were never spoken. But deep down, like I was like, I don't mind if I come home tonight after this, you know, having a few drinks and I haven't scored a chick, because I'll just chuck my laptop on and watch a porn.
Exactly.
You know, like so that was how it was like that sort of numbing. It was like getting kind of losing myself to a non-real entity and not really seeing and not really even knowing what I was missing out on.
Not really living life.
Yeah. And then around I got a partner. So I found a girlfriend, and she saw porn on my, you know, mobile and laptop.
And what was it that made you find her? Like, when in this place of numbness and not wanting to find a partner, what was it about her that drew you towards her?
Wow, there's a massive story that could take like 20 minutes up if I explain to you the whole preamble to us meeting.
Story of how you met.
So it honestly, it was divine. It was a huge intervention in my life by the universe or God, whatever you know your listeners believe in. For me, it's God. It was just God placing this person in my life at this time to teach me so much that I didn't even know I needed to learn. And she came, I met her in an elevator, and I was just infatuated. The numbness just instantly disappeared with this person in a way that I'd never experienced before. And I was like, I have to pursue this person. Like that person is my person, and she probably doesn't know it yet, but I feel it.
Yeah.
And she lived in Australia, I lived in New Zealand, and 4 days, no word of a lie, 4 days after meeting that person, I was in a relationship with her.
Wow.
And she was already in a relationship when I met her in the elevator.
Oh.
So you got
Awesome.
you got to understand, like she was in a relationship, I was single, saw her in the elevator. Without going into the details are great, by the way. That should be a whole different ball game, but a different story. But without going into the details, the 4 days that so much changed for her, for me, and within a month of meeting in the elevator, she had moved to New Zealand, and so she taught me a whole lot about. Well, I'll start here. She hit me up about porn first and foremost. She was kind of like, I'm not into it. I don't want you to watch it. Okay. I would.
How did she find out? How did she find out you were watching it?
Saw it on my devices.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't really something I gave a crap about hiding.
Right.
To be honest, like I wasn't trying to hide it. No, I didn't even think it was a bad thing. I just didn't even think I'm watching porn. It's got nothing to do with my love for you. It's not a real person. So I'm not cheating. Like what, And so, but anyway, she expressed it, and then she started to realize like I wasn't really kind of listening to her, just in her conversation and her reasons. So she gave me other reasons to look at. She started to do the research for me and hand me the research as to what porn does to people.
Yeah.
And because of my love obsession with progress, I realized that I was massively stagnating in an area of life that I wasn't giving any focus or attention of growth to, which is my relationship and my sex life.
Yeah.
I wasn't progressing in those areas. All of a sudden, she triggered a area where I was stagnating. And I can't stand stagnation. I was like, wow, I am fully not growing, not learning, and not expanding in that area.
Yeah.
And thanks for pointing it out. Porn is a huge inhibitor to that. I saw it for what it was and for many other things. And I would encourage any guy who maybe hasn't done any research into porn, that has listened to this, that is watching porn, or girl or woman, look up research what porn does to the brain.
Yes.
And you will see the science that people have shown, what gets released, the chemicals that gets released, how those chemicals affect you, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you will see what I saw. And
are there any things you remember on the top of your head that you can share on this podcast for the listeners? So
it was the numbness to real sexual pleasure. So that was a major one, and that obviously comes down to that inhibits progress in that area. Like physical sex gets inhibited by what porn does to your brain.
Yeah.
And so if you enjoy physical sex, which let's be honest, pretty much all of us do, most of us anyway, we love sex and we cherish it and we vibe with it. We want to do it. It's a big part of our lives. Well, imagine, you'd obviously view porn differently if you knew how much it inhibited that physical part of sex, as well as the warped perception of what sex and intimacy is about.
Yes.
Huge warped perception. I had a huge warped perception of how to be intimate, and the difference between fucking and the difference between making love and the difference between intimacy and the difference between a rougher way of sex. And all I had learned and been taught from porn from the age of 13, like it's not like I had any male role models teaching me how to have sex or else. Like I didn't have that. It was porn and porn only that taught me how to and what's the best way to put my penis inside of someone and create a pleasurable experience for us both. That was it. Or
for yourself, right?
Yeah. And so, and I learned, and I was limited to fucking. That's all I knew how to do.
Yeah.
All I knew how to do was have loud, wild, very physical, almost dominating sex, because that was predominantly what I watched. I was really into that when I was watching porn. And that was all I watched. I did not watch porn about making love and being intimate, because it was for the viewing side of it, it was boring.
Yeah.
Viewing, in my mind anyway, it was boring watching that.
It wasn't exciting.
No. Making love doesn't necessarily come with the best angles for camera angles. Like it's, and so all of that is
the best lighting.
exactly. And so for me, it was like I didn't learn that part of it. I never watched it. I never paid any attention to that part of it.
Do you feel
so
like you wanted this like variety and excitement and this almost like this unknowing, like, ooh, like anything could happen, whereas like the lovemaking seemed quite boring, like you knew what was going to happen, it was pretty straightforward, like it's not as box
a more visual way to put it, because I'm a visual person, is I was trying to turn my girlfriend into a porn star.
Right.
That's what I was trying to do. And if she didn't moan as loud as I wanted her to, and if she didn't, arch her back in the way I wanted her to, and she didn't, hold herself in the bedroom the way that a porn star did, I would, kind of coach her through it and kind of slowly trying to turn her into a loud, over exaggerated porn star.
Yep. I've definitely slept with men like that, and it is not fun. And you can tell too, because like this topic hits me pretty hard to the heart, because I used to date someone who was addicted to sex, and he had a porn addiction as well. So I full well know, and I was the girlfriend as well in that relationship, giving him the information like, look, you need to stop watching porn. This isn't good for you. And yeah, it's crazy once you learn about all of that. And I'm someone who I've never been into porn myself. I don't watch it, but you can tell, and I'm sure for a male or a female, if I have sex with someone who watches porn or who doesn't, I can tell if someone watches porn or not just by the way they fuck me, like, or, if they're making love with me, or when I get intimate with someone, I can tell if they watch porn or not. It's obvious. Like once you know everything about it, you can tell. Yeah.
100%. And so it was a massive part or stage in my growth in that area when she pointed that out.
And you were willing to. So it wasn't her being like, you need to stop. And you were like, no, like you were actually like, holy shit, this makes sense. I want to change.
And it didn't happen in a day. It happened over like a couple of weeks when I started to really divulge the information that I was looking at.
Exactly.
And then once it kind of hit me between the eyes of how I was massively stagnating in that area, boom, that hit my highest value, which is progress. That's what elevates my soul. And I was like, I want to progress more in this area, this very important area of life.
Yeah.
And so I stopped watching porn, and oh my goodness, I had no idea what was on the other side of that. And this was just the beginning, Arel, of what I've gone through. But like, I saw a massive shift, and I felt a massive shift in my energy.
Yeah.
And my enthusiasm towards my partner.
Right. Like, for sure.
And she was just like blown away, because I'm already a very enthusiastic and energetic person, but I was suppressed and in that area. And I came out of my shell. I blossomed out of this numbness. And that again took time. It didn't happen within a day. It took months and months of all of a sudden, and every time I felt like watching porn and I just didn't, the next thing after that was, where do I channel that energy?
Yeah, exactly.
And the energy just got more and more and more, and I was channeling it into my partner, and my love for her grew deeper. Yeah. I didn't realize you guys may have heard or seen memes out there or seen things on social media, porn kills love.
Yeah.
Like that was extreme to me when I was watching porn. I was like, oh, that's an extreme thing to say. Like I've got love in my heart and I watch porn, hugely justifying it. But it's not that it eliminates love. It just kills it off, and it starts to get less and less and less. And I didn't realize that until I stopped, and I realized how much desire, love, and lust and passion I had.
Or it numbs it. The word numb, as you use, right? It numbs the love.
Yeah. And so for me, that was a huge and like quite instant benefit that came very soon after I stopped watching porn, because every time, like the twice a day that I all of a sudden had all of that energy to channel towards her, and then it just started to compound.
And was that energy always channeled towards her in a love way, or in a sexual and an intimacy way, or was it also channeled toward other areas of your life?
Business. So I run a very people orientated business.
Yeah.
And that business, completely soared because I had energy as like a spark in me that wasn't there. And that's the only way I can describe it. Like there was just a difference in, like, this person who I'm, me right now talking on this podcast with you.
Yeah.
I did not talk like this before.
Right.
I did not talk with the energy in my voice. I did not talk with the passion in my voice.
Wow.
And the clarity. It just elevated me more than this is why I'm so kind of like, I'm super excited to talk about this topic with you. And when you ask me, I'm like, yes, because it's made a massive difference. And I know that people out there that hear this, that are watching porn, I'm just hoping, my desire, my hope is that you get value out of my story and start to venture down the same path, because it's a beautiful path. And we're only about halfway through this. Like, I haven't even gotten to the point where I originally started at, where I was listening to the podcast and doing that mundane renovating work, where I realized there was a whole other side to just stopping watching porn.
Yeah.
There was way more to it than that.
Right.
And so just watching porn was like opening the doorway to being open to progress in that area. And I was progressing massively. So I was progressing. I felt good. And then I started to feel, after a couple of years, I'm talking 3-4 years, like a repetition or a routine kind of kicking into our sex life.
Yeah.
And I was like, this, 4 years, it's great energy, high energy, but little did I know that I would get from this podcast that just so randomly came to me that day, that it was, who has taught you and how have you learned how to be intimate with someone?
Yeah.
That was the question, the top question of the podcast was, how have you learned how to be intimate? How have you learned how to connect physically in bed, intimately with someone?
Yep.
And the answer straight away came to my head. Guess what it was? Porn. That's how I had learned. So even though I had stopped, it was like, as an analogy that we can all relate to, it's like a teacher teaching you how to do something.
Yep.
And then your teacher stops teaching you how to do something.
Yeah.
But you do not replace it with anything else.
Honestly, I agree with you. I am like fist pumping in the air right now. Honestly, this is I'm so passionate about this topic as well. It's so true. Like I don't want to stereotype men at all, and I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but the majority of men fuck the same. And I know it's because they're all influenced from porn, because a lot of men start watching it in their early teens or their teens before they even lose their virginity, or during that time where they're still exploring and learning how to have sex, and they're scared and they don't know what to do or how to perform. So they go on the internet and they watch these porn videos. And honestly, like, every single guy does the same thing. And you're like, and I remember questioning that myself. I'm like, why does every guy do the same fucking technique in the same order, in the exact same order every time? And then I started I'm like, holy shit. And then that's the first time I watched porn. And I was like, I want to know what this is. And I watched it and I was like, click, like light bulb in the brain. I was like, oh my God, that's what's been happening the last, since I've lost my virginity. That's how guys have been fucking me. It's the exact same as this video was showing them to do. And I'm like, so curious. Like, if I went to Africa or something and you were intimate with an African man who was in a third world country and didn't speak English and was never on the internet, what would that experience be like? It would just probably be completely different.
honestly, like it's this from a male's perspective, Aral. Yeah. It's almost, I'm not saying this is the truth, because it's not set in the law. It's not, you don't have to abide by this law, but it's almost like an unspoken law. Yeah. As a guy, it's just not acceptable. It feels like it's not acceptable to not know what to do in the bedroom. Oh, for sure. So the pressure is so fear-based that you're like, I can't not just, like, if a woman all of a sudden, wants to have sex with me, and I have no freaking clue what I'm doing, how terrible is that going to be? I'm going to look like an idiot. Exactly. They're going to tell all my friends that I don't know what to do. I'm going to be challenged as a man. Yeah, I'll be challenged as a man. I'll get teased, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so porn is like a safety net.
For sure. Yeah.
And in those early stages of life. And then it just becomes something that you do for pleasure and blah, blah, blah. That's exactly how I ventured down that road. And that was my teacher.
I think so
and
many
then this
people can relate with that. I think
and then this podcast was like, who taught you? Where did you learn it? I was like, porn. 4 years later, after I stopped watching it, it was porn. And had I put in another teacher or another learning or another mentor, a sexual mentor in place from that, so after I'd stopped, no. So who was your main teacher? It's still porn. Yeah. How do you know how do you know everything that you know about sex? It's porn. Exactly. Wow, there's so much more that I need to do other than just stop watching porn. Yeah. Massive light bulb moment. Yeah. And so that was when I made a decision to, and this is a big one. I know that we're taking a complete turn here in this conversation by me saying this, and that's okay. I'm not telling anyone what they should do. I'm just sharing my story, and if it inspires, amazing.
Go for it.
I decided 8 months ago to abstain from sex. Yeah. And the reason why, and my partner was so up for this as well. It wasn't just my choice. We obviously talked about it, and we both abstained. Yeah. And the reason why is because I wanted to have a clean slate while I was learning new ways of being intimate, new ways of connecting, new techniques of doing it, and having conversations with my partner and without sex being involved, asking her what does pleasure her, what does turn her on, what fantasies are in her mind, and getting to know her from scratch, from just a holding hands, touching each other, lightly touching each other without being intimate, physically intimate in any way.
I love that.
and because really, why did I do that? It was because I didn't want to be learning while still practicing the techniques I'd learned from porn, because that's all I knew. Exactly. So if we were going to have sex, we were going to be having sex, it would be still me putting into practice what I'd learned from porn. So I knew that I would learn and absorb way quicker if I just stopped and started from scratch and rewrote the techniques, rewrote the story, rewrote the way of being intimate in my brain, not while still
the brain too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Structuring it.
And I knew it wasn't just going to take months. I knew it was going to be a long time. And so it just so happens, we got engaged 2 months after that. And the first time we're going to break our abstinence is on the night of our wedding, and when we get married. And it's highly likely not going to be for another two years minimum.
Oh, what?
So I'm already 8 months in. So it's almost going to be 3 years of abstaining as a 27-year-old Kiwi guy. That's pretty intense. But let me fill you in on what's in it for you. If just from my experience standpoint, if you do decide to go as hardcore as what I am in the progression of getting better in this area of intimacy, love, and sex. Yeah. Right. What I've noticed in the last 8 months has been just, again, so massive. Just like when I stopped watching porn, just the first thing was I noticed how much importance I placed on sex as a man.
Yes.
I had my sexual performance trigger positive things about me or negative things about my personality or who I am in my manhood. So, for example, if I performed well in bed and I made her come and we came at the same time and we were sweating, it was hot, it was an amazing sexual session, then I would have the best couple of days preceding that ever.
Yeah.
I'm a man. She would look at me with this love in her eyes. It was because I fucked her well, and
I'm still fist pumping, by the way.
Yeah. And then if, say, for instance, I had an off day and maybe I came too soon, or I it didn't last as long, or she didn't get off, or maybe there was just felt a lack of connection in that session, then it would affect me negatively.
Yeah, exactly.
As a man.
Exactly.
And I placed so much importance on my mood and my view of myself based on my sexual performance. And I had created sex to be this huge, important, like soul enlightening or soul destroying thing
Right.
out of nothing. I didn't even know, to be honest, I don't have the answer as to why or where it came from. I think
it's your ego.
It's the ego. Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. And like, I when that disappeared in my relationship, and that was no longer an option to trigger what I would, to trigger those endorphins as a man, I realized that it was all smoke and mirrors. It was BS.
Yep.
Because she is looking at me the way that I thought she looked at me after I performed well. She's looking at me like that, and I haven't even had sex with her.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I was just making it all up. It was all just a big smoke and mirrors facade. And so that was a huge realization. I had created sex to be something that ruled me and controlled me, rather than me having, I don't want to use the word control, but me having a good relationship with it, like a healthy relationship with it, and not placing so much emphasis on it.
Exactly.
Because where I did that, where I placed so much importance and emphasis, there was lack in other areas.
Yeah.
And so so that to me was a huge thing I noticed within the first month. Like, that was an instant thing, because we normally would have sex, once every 2 or 3 days, sometimes multiple times a day. And so it was quite a regular thing in a relationship that had been going on for 4 years. We were still very highly sexual.
Exactly.
And then stopping that for a month was like, twiddle your thumbs at times when you'd normally be doing it. You feel the urges, and you're still, and that was when that realization happened. And then flowing on from that, from like the second month onwards, I started to just massively have I cherished holding hands for the first time.
Yeah.
I cherished the small things, and I cherished the kissing, and I stayed up in the night talking to her, and woke up in the morning talking to her differently.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, at times where sex was normally present, there was a connection there that was communication. There was a connection there that was holding hands.
Yeah.
And I took all of that for granted. The small little things of intimacy I took for granted.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I only realized that after I got rid of the climax.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Did you feel like it was all like back then, the holding hand and the eye gazing and the kissing? It was almost like, oh, great, this is just the start of, but I have this end thing in mind, this end goal in mind.
Not even that good. It wasn't even that good. It wasn't even like, oh, this is just the start of. It was a waste of time.
Ah, okay.
Even more intense than just
not like, a man of foreplay, cool. Were you?
No. Like foreplay was like touching her vagina, like her going down on me going down on her, like all of that was a part of it. I cherished that. I did enjoy that. Yes. But I completely took for granted and overlooked the beauty of just, holding your partner's hand and
looking into their eyes.
And anyone on this podcast who's listening, who is either feeling like, I'm not really connecting with this, like, oh, this isn't really like something that I can resonate with, the whole like holding hands and blah blah blah. Yeah, I 100% can get that, because if I had have listened to this while still kind of like watching porn and hadn't ventured this far down the path, I wouldn't have given a crap about someone who was like, now I cherish holding hands, now I cherish this. Like, it just wouldn't have connected with me at all, because it was a waste of time.
Right.
But now I'm telling you from my own words, like, I love that part. I love it just as much as I love the blowjob. Like, okay, I don't ejaculate from holding hands, obviously, but like, there's that desire to do it. Totally. That was never there, and it's just brought me and my partner so much closer. And
so you're basically learning every form of intimacy that you can have, and every form of showing, giving, and receiving love in a non-sexual way.
From scratch. Yeah.
Right. I love
it. And it's all been, I am not being like, I'm just, this is the path I'm on, and this is the way it's gone for me. I've just fallen into this. Like, this has all just been a falling into and happening along the way, and me being open to how it goes. Yeah. So like, I'm not on any kind of course. I'm not on any. I haven't got a full-time mentor, but I listen to podcasts about Kama Sutra. I listen to podcasts about love, intimacy, and I'm gaining all of these perspectives on how to move forward. Just educating and just being so open to it. So that's how it's kind of evolving for me. It's not a set in stone way. It's like an everyday kind of progression that I'm so open to because I'm getting value out of it. I'm getting so much value out of it.
And the important thing as well is not keeping it a secret, right? Because you're never gonna grow out of that bubble or, you know, that addiction or whatever from keeping it a secret or not being honest with yourself as well. First of all, being honest with yourself, and then being open to the journey of, you know, self-discovery and all that.
1,000%. I would sit down and have this conversation in front of a room of people, one-on-one with anyone, because I feel like it will resonate with someone on some level everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. It's so hard because I still haven't gone full circle yet into this, into sex after this relearning phase. And I'm like 2 years away from that. I, comfortably can say I'm 2 years away from being at that stage where I can offer a completely different perspective in the bedroom after going through all of this growth.
I'll have you back on the podcast 2 years.
Yeah. Hey, awesome. And so all I can say is, I don't know what the other side looks like, but what I do know is that when I was very much on the side of the fence of porn was my teacher and that was what I knew. Yeah. I deep down knew there was more to this. Right. In my heart, I knew that there was more to what I was doing in bed. I knew that there was more, and I was completely unsure of how to get that more. Right. Because it was an intimate subject to go and ask someone for help with. Exactly. It can also sometimes be quite expensive help if you do find a course, which I did, research courses. And at the time, I didn't have the money to funnel the thousands of dollars into some of these courses. Exactly. Even though I can imagine that would be great. And so I decided to go down the path of just figuring it out myself. But that I wanted to go down that path because I knew in my heart there was more to this thing called sex, and there was way more intimacy and emotion and physical pleasure I could experience from this that I wasn't experiencing. And if anyone else has those thoughts in the back of their mind, and answer this for yourself. If you do have those thoughts, like there is more to this that I could experience. I know there is. I know there's more out there. Yeah. Then have the courage to pursue it. Reason why is because, holy shit, man, we've got fuck all time on this earth. Yeah. Like we got fuck all time to have the best possible experiences that we can. Yeah. Sex is so important. It's how we're all here. Sex is so important. So go down that path and grow in that area, progress in that area. Yeah. And have this be the podcast you listen to where you say, wow, this other guy is venturing down that path because it can be done. And he's doing it having no clue what the heck he's doing. And it hasn't cost him very much at all. All the podcasts have been for free. Yeah. Choosing not to watch porn was a free choice. Yeah. Choosing to abstain was a free choice. All of this stuff there's a lot that you can get your hands on that's free. Yet the value that you get out of it in your day-to-day life and your relationships and your intimacy is so massive.
Perfect. And for those who are listening who are single but are on this road and they're like, oh wow, I'm single and that's why I watch a lot of porn. So, it's not really my choice to stop watching porn and then start making love with my girlfriend because I don't have a girlfriend or I don't have a boyfriend. Like, what advice can you give for people who are listening to this right now who are single and want to go on this journey of self-discovery and exploring their true, sexual side of things without a partner?
I've got like 2 epic things that I could pass on. Okay. First one is simple. Like, cut out porn. Just get rid of porn. If you don't have a strong desire to get rid of porn, then give yourself a bit of a kick up the butt by looking at the research of what porn's doing to you. Right. That will give you some motivation if you're lacking motivation to give up porn. Perfect. Second thing is, this is a great thing that it made a huge difference to my desire was when you masturbate, because it's a natural part of life if you don't have a partner. Yeah. When you masturbate, use your imagination, not porn. Yes. use your imagination, get your imagination stronger, get your imagination and your creative side of your brain, give that strength, and use your imagination. Don't use an outside stimulus to stimulate your pleasures while you're playing with yourself. Exactly. Right? Use your imagination. That will be something that will help massively with your energy. You know, it'll get your motivation to meet people. Will start your creativity on ways to meet people. Your creativity on getting out there and finding different ways to put yourself in situations where you could potentially find a partner will start to come from your exercising your imagination. So that's one thing.
If you have a partner, your creativity of how to have sex with them will also come from, you know.
And then if you don't have a partner, then stop watching porn. And do that and masturbate with using your imagination. And then I promise you will, the frustration that you may experience of using your imagination and not having porn as your stimulus, all of a sudden you'll be like, I need to find a stimulus. I need to find a better stimulus than myself. And you will get out there. You will have you will put yourself on the market just with your energy, not necessarily doing anything different. You may be someone who watches porn, who goes out every weekend and tries. But you are trying with this dim light, dim light that porn is dimming it, right? Your energy is dim, your desire is dim, your hunger and your lust is dim. And so when you brighten that light, which happens by stopping watching porn, when you brighten that light, your energy will completely change the way that the opposite sex looks at you. Just from across the club. They don't even have to speak a word to you. Just from across the room, they will be able to see and
the same
feel
sex
and vibe.
Too. The same sex too. Will
same sex too, yeah. Heck yeah. You know, and all of us can relate to this. And how I know is that when you walk into a club or when you walk into a social situation, there is people that you're instantly drawn to and attracted to, and you haven't spoken a word to them. Just by looking at them. And it not necessarily has to be, sometimes you can even shock yourselves at who you're drawn to. You're like, wow, that person's not not necessarily that's the physical type of person that I'd go to. But man, they're attractive. It's because their energy is high. It's because they're in this different flow and their light is bright, because they're not under any form of suppressants or anything or being suppressed by porn. That's my advice for anyone who doesn't have a partner.
I love it. It's so good. Is there anything else that you want to mention that I haven't asked you yet today, or that we haven't discussed to finish up? Or
no, I would just say, like what I said before, is just know that you can grow in this area. Know that there is more out there for all of us, and there is never a ceiling, right? And you can expand in this area of sex. And if it is something,
there is never a ceiling. I love that. I'm going to take that with me.
And grow from desire growth, desire to grow in this area if it's an area that's important to you. Because you will get the endorphins when you see the progression, when you see the value that your work in that area is bringing you. And that would be my parting advice. And also just to say thank you, Arel, for providing such an amazing platform for people to listen to these beautiful conversations that aren't typical. It's amazing. And thanks for asking me to come on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for coming on. I might have you on again in 2 years or sometime soon about something else. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Great. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
No worries. You too. Bye.
Bye.
See you, everyone.
I was like, oh, there it goes.
I love it.